For my students.
And this, I propose, is the inhuman soul of the algorithm. It may think for us, it may work for us, it may organize our lives for us, but the algorithm will never bleed for us. The algorithm will never suffer for us. The algorithm will never mourn for us. In this refusal lies the essence of its moral being. Lorelei Shaw, Silicon Souls, on the Culpability of Artificial Minds.
I met Lorelei Shaw when she was writing her thesis on what would now be called the ethics of artificial intelligence. She was enrolled at the University of Chicago, pursuing a dual doctorate in engineering and philosophy, she told me on our first date, working in the new field of computational morality. With a self-conscious laugh, I asked her what that meant. She lined up our coasters, glasses, toothpicks, and cocktail napkins along the bar and started to explain. She was interested, she said, in how we learn to be good. She wanted to know whether we can train machines to be good in the same ways we train ourselves. I watched her lips move as she spoke, mesmerized by the spray of freckles across her delicate features, by the frizzy mess of hair, by the small cleft in her chin. Draining her martini, Lorelei told me the title of her dissertation, Computational Reason and Ethical Realism, Are Humans Moral Machines?, then squirmed on her stool, blinking like an owl, daring me to leave. I ordered another round. The May of our wedding, I finished my second year of law school at DePaul and started a summer associateship at a mid-sized regional firm outside Washington. The following winter, I accepted a return offer, just as Lorelei landed a tenure-track position at Johns Hopkins in nearby Baltimore. We bought a condo in Maryland, close to the train line, so we would both have an easy commute. A few kids later, we upgraded to a house in Bethesda. To our friends and families, it sounded like the beginning of a joke. A lawyer and a philosopher walk into a bar. Our differences, though, kept things interesting, alive. There was an element of fascination and husbandly pride in watching Lorelei whoosh off to high-flying symposiums in Brisbane or Dubai, get tapped for lucrative consulting gigs by think tanks and corporations, while I toiled away in a suburban office park, mired in spreadsheets and Keurig cups. But I liked the work, the churn of clients and cases, and where I came from, a steady paycheck as high as mine made me a shining success story. My people had no idea DePaul wasn't even the best law school in Chicago, not second best either. I didn't care. I had Lorelei, we had our family, we had unbelievable luck. The year of our 15th anniversary, Lorelei won a MacArthur Fellowship, the so-called Genius Award. The citation mentioned her groundbreaking work on the morality of AI, her role in shaping an emergent field of vital importance to the future of humanity. At the celebratory reception, I huddled in a corner with Charlie, 9 at the time, while the Hopkins president joked about the salary package it would take to keep his mother from jumping ship to Stanford or MIT. But she stayed. Lorelei has always been loyal that way, to her employers, her passions, her 3 siblings. The youngest of these is Julia, who, at the time of our marriage, was clerking at the U.S. Supreme Court for Justice Breyer. The Shaws are that kind of family. After the ceremony, Julia, tipsy, pulled me aside to tell me how much she admired me. I was skeptical and asked her why. "There aren't many men," Julia said, "who would be comfortable marrying their clear intellectual superior." "Well, there aren't many smart women," I countered, "who would be comfortable marrying a guy as dumb as a brick." "That's where you're wrong," Julia said, and whisked herself off toward the bar. My sister-in-law had told me nothing I didn't already know. Unlike my new wife, I was never going to be a standout in my profession, was never going to have a brain like hers.